In this live stream, I'm going to go over 20 of the most common questions asked in an interview to help you. Let's get started. On the surface, in a graphic design job interview, it should be easy. After all, you're talking about the subject you know most about, yourself. But when anxiety, pressure, and nerves get in the way, you might give answers that don't exactly paint a lovely picture of you as an employee. While there's no miracle cure for being nervous, it helps to make sure you're prepared for the questions the interviewer throws at you. We've compiled a list of some of the most common questions that graphic designers are asked during a job interview, along with the tips for how to deliver your answers. So let's get started. Question number 1. Can you tell me a bit about yourself? With this question, just give a brief summary of your professional persona. Include who you are, any education or experience you might have, and maybe a few snippets of information on your career thus far. You don't want to go too much into detail. Just think of this as an introduction of whom you are. You want to be friendly and open with a focus on your accomplishments as a designer. You don't want to go into too much detail. Just think of this as an introduction. It's a good idea to hand over a business card at this point. Many people wait until the end of a job interview for this. If they have a business card at all, but it makes a better first impression if you offer your business card during the introduction. It not only shows you have a professional attitude, it actually gives your interviewer a first look at how you assume of a course that you design your own business cards. Question number 2. Why did you leave your last job? This is not your own personal forum for airing out all the grievances you had with your last employer. Doing so is not going to help you get the job. Instead, you want to remain professional and honest without coming across as someone who makes a lot of unnecessary problems. Put a positive spin on your reasoning as much as you can. For example, money is a common reason why people leave their jobs and is not unreasonable. to speak out new employment opportunities. In order to increase your income level. However, telling a potential employer that you left over money is going to signal to them that you might do the same thing to them one day, or that it'll be expensive to keep you. Instead, you can say that you felt there was no longer any room to grow at your last company, or that you were looking for new opportunities to advance your career. In some cases, you'll be interviewing for a job without having actually left the last job. That's okay, but expect to answer a lot of questions about what you do at your current job, why you're thinking of leaving it, and how long it'll take you to be able to start your new job. If you work freelance, you may be asked questions about your current clients and whether working for them will create time conflicts or prevent you from hitting your deadlines. If you were fired or let go from your last job, this might be an extremely stressful and difficult question for you to answer. Don't be nervous. Don't be too nervous if you were fired after all. Everybody loves a good comeback story. Just make sure to spin this answer into something positive that helps demonstrate your growth as a designer. For example, if you were let go from your last position because you were a good fit for because you weren't a good fit for your employer, it means you're ready to find a company which is better suited to your talents. If it was a personal problem, then outline the steps you've taken to correct that behavior and demonstrate your eagerness to get back into the game. Above all else, stay positive and don't go into more detail than you need to in order to explain the situation. Don't point fingers or use this as an opportunity to badmouth your last boss. Just present the facts, show that you've grown from the experience, and move on to the next question. If the interviewer wants to know more, he or she will ask you follow-up questions. The third tip I'm going to give you is what kind of design projects interest you. Liking your job has never been a requirement of employment, but good employers know that happy workers do better work, especially if they like the work they're doing. Every designer has his or her own specialty, something they like to do above all else. If what you like to do just happens to be the same job you're applying for, then you're in good shape. If you're afraid that your interests and the job you're applying for aren't the best match for you, then try to find the best answer that is not only honest, but makes you the best candidate for the job. You could mention that you would like to work your way up into a position that would let you work on your favorite types of projects, if that's a possibility. Or you could always aim for an answer that is a little broader. You could say that you like projects that allow you to work with a team, or that you like working on challenging projects that everybody else has given up on. In the end, you want to answer as truthfully as possible, because it gives future employers a sense of what you're good at and where you might fit the best. You never know. You could go in for an interview for one job and leave with a different job you didn't even know were available. What kind of design software are you familiar with? This is the next question we're going over. When interviewers ask this question, they're trying to find out if you're able to use their in-house software, or how quickly you'd be able to learn if you're unfamiliar with it. Obviously, your best case scenario is to know ahead of time what kind of software they use. If you already know how to use their preferred software, this will be a pretty straightforward answer. If you don't know their software, or you have no idea what they use, this can be a tricky question to answer. Tell them what you do know and try to include any program you think they might use. If you use something that's similar to the to another program, that can also be a big help, and the interviewer might not always be able to make that connection, so be sure to do it for them. For example, if you use one of the many Photoshop alternatives out there, you probably understand the basics of Photoshop too. Express a willingness to learn new programs. This is a good idea, even if you're familiar with their in-house software. You never know when the company might upgrade to new software, so designers who can make the switch without taking a long time to adjust are always favorable candidates. If you're even If you've even had to learn new software for a job in the past, be sure to mention this in the interview. The next question that interviewers may ask you is, what is your graphic design process? Since this can be a long, detailed answer, you'll want to have prepared you'll want to have it prepared for you ahead of time so that you don't trip over your words or accidentally admit details or ramble on with too much information. Employers ask this question because they want to know how you do what you do, how long it'll take you to do it, and the kind of roadblocks you are likely to run into along the way. Some designers are lucky to be able to just sit down and crank out an amazing design without barely any thought or planning, while other designers need to utilize a dozen different drafts and outlines to get their design finished. Employers usually want you to be somewhere in between these two extremes. You should have a process that allows for revisions and critiques, but it also but is also speedy enough that you'll hit your deadline without any problems. For some designers, this might mean actually sitting down and figuring out what your process is. But that's okay. The more thought you give to the kind of designer you are, the more you'll have to work with during your interview. And the easiest it is to showcase yourself as the best candidate for the job. Question number 6. What have you learned from your mistakes as a graphic designer? We've all made blunders along the way. Employers are sympathetic to this fact, but they also want to work with designers who have learned from their mistakes and improved their craft because of it. Be prepared with examples from your career that demonstrate your ability to bounce back from a mistake without making you look like a total doofus. Employers always want to see that you've learned from your mistakes, not just that you've learned to avoid making the same mistake again, but that you were able to adjust the way you work or think. They want to know how this mistake has made you a better graphic designer, not merely that you were able to save face after the fact. Perhaps making a mistake in a graphic design program inspired you to reach and learn more about it, to not only prevent future mistakes, but also discover new ways to improve your craft. Employers see you as an investment. So you have to show them that you'll only get better with time, and that the longer they stick with you, the more value you'll demonstrate. What are your graphic design career goals? This is an interview minefield that can be tricky to cross, especially if your career goals don't necessarily include staying with a company for an extended period of time. You want to be honest, but you don't want to come off as someone who is simply using this job as a stepping stone to something bigger. Employers realize that their employees aren't always going to stay with the company for for the entirety of their career, but they also want to work with people who are committed. Express your career goals as a designer in a way that makes you seem favorable to the employer. For example, saying that you want to eventually leave to work with bigger brands and hopefully gain larger recognition might sound like a good goal to strive for, but saying too much could hurt your chance of getting the job. Instead, you might say something like, one day, I want to create a logo that is as recognizable as the McDonald's golden arches. You're telling the employer that have you have goals, but you're framing them in a way where the employer might be able to benefit from them. In the employer's mind, it might be their logo that you make into a nationally recognized icon. It's important that you have goals, saying that your career goal is to do the exact job you're interviewing for is just going to make you look desperate and directionless. Directionless. The company you're interviewing with wants to expand and grow, and they want to work with designers who also want to expand and grow. Question number 8 you may be asked in an interview. What are your strengths? This is your chance to show off, but don't overdo it. Of course, you want to showcase your best accomplishments as a designer, as well as positive qualities that you can bring to the workplace. But that's where many people lose their focus. They forget about what's important to the company they're interviewing with. Frame your strengths in a way that they are relevant to your potential employer. Whenever possible, try to tailor your responses so that they match closely with what the company is looking for. For example, instead of just saying that you know InDesign, you might mention that you have plenty of experience designing multiple page materials. If you're interviewing with a company, that puts out a lot of brochures. Avoid using glitches like saying you're a hard worker or a team player. These are empty words unless you have examples to back up your claims, which you should. You want to sound impressive to potential employers, but you also have to present yourself in a way that makes you stand out over all the other candidates who are likely just as hardworking and team playing as you are. Number 9. What do you know about or what do you know about our company or brand? Employers love it when employees take an interest in their company or brand, especially in the case of designers. After all, how can you design something that matches their brand's style if you don't know about know anything about them? Do your homework before the interview and try to come prepared with some idea of what the company is all about. You don't need to know all of the facts, but you should try to have an understanding of their overall message and philosophy. And why are you a good fit for them? Employers are looking to work with designers who want to work with them. So if there's something about the company that you particularly like, now is the time to say so. Demonstrating that you share the same values as the brand helps you to look like the best candidate for the job. If you can't find anything about the company, then this is your opportunity to learn more. Let the interviewer know that you tried to find information about the company, but were unable to. Then ask them if they would feel if they would fill you in on what you don't know. When the interviewer is done telling you about their company, reiterate your interest in the position based on your new knowledge of the company and give some example of why you fit in with their overall identity. Number 10. What have you done to improve your knowledge of graphic design? Employers want to work with designers who are already good at what they do, but they also want designers who will continue to improve with time instead of stagnation. You didn't get to where you are by doing nothing. So talking talk about your experiences getting here. You'll want to provide your educational background, but also talk about some of the classes you took and why that made you a better graphic designer. Have you learned new software over the past few years? Have you tried your hand at designing a different type of media than you're used to? Do you spend time reading design books, blogs, and forums? These are all great things to mention. You might even want to pepper in some future ideas in your responses. If you have plans to take a class in the future, or if or if there's a design book you've had your eye on, use this to demonstrate to the employer that you're still taking steps to improve yourself. Like always, if you can tailor your responses to fit the particular job at hand, it will better your chances of becoming employed. For example, if you're interviewing for a print design career, you'll want to talk about the way they've improved yourself as a print designer instead of focusing on all the ways you've improved your digital work. Well, that's it for the live stream today. If you got value from this live stream and would like more like this, then consider subscribing and smashing that like button. And we'll see you next Wednesday for another live show with BDesign 680. Like always, keep on dreaming. Bye.